Tropical Storm Bret closing in on St Lucia. Many of the Windward Islands are about to receive Tropical Storm Bret, which is a quite strong storm at this point. It's at 13.9 degrees north, 56.8 degrees west as of the latest update, and it has winds of around 65 miles per hour, possibly slightly higher, and is a strong tropical storm. That's 105 kilometers per hour with an estimated central pressure of 998 millibars, moving west at 15 miles per hour. That's 24 kilometers per hour. The storm will pass through the Lesser Antilles in the next 24 hours or less, and then spread out into the Caribbean Sea, where it's going to be on borrowed time. We expect it will weaken. Here it is right now then in terms of where it is displayed on the map, with its wind field extending out up to 100 nautical miles on the northeastern quadrant. Doesn't look huge when you look at it that way, but it is still a potentially dangerous storm. Now, there is a hurricane watch in effect for St Lucia in the event that it could strengthen. It's currently just 300 kilometers from Barbados, 434 from Martinique, 438 from St Lucia, 505 from Dominica, and 523 from Guadeloupe. Tropical storm watches and warnings are in effect for those areas. Interestingly, Barbados, the closest land from the storm, is only under a watch right now. But warnings, of course, for those islands that are expected to pile into as it continues that general westward movement. We're mainly looking at St Lucia and Martinique. Heavy rainfall could cause flash flooding on multiple islands throughout the night. High rain rates and accumulations approaching 10 inches are possible from Barbados to Guadeloupe and all points in between. This will be accompanied, of course, by dangerous winds near hurricane force, particularly on St Lucia, where we have that hurricane watch. Of course, if it doesn't get to hurricane status, we could still see hurricane force gusts, which could be dangerous and damaging as well. Here's what we expect on the forecast then over the next few days, and it's quite a simple forecast. The storm will start weakening by the time it passes through the islands and will really reach its demise very quickly according to the latest model consensus there, dissipating by the time, completely dissipating at least by the time we get to Monday as it reaches Central America. But in truth, it will probably be very weak by the time it even gets close to there, and I shouldn't think there'll be any worries. Right now then, 65 miles per hour, NOAA ADT close to that as well, National Hurricane Center 70 miles per hour, mainly out of caution according to the latest update, and for some reason the SSEC ADT is way up there in hurricane strength. I'm not really sure why. But in general, I think we're all agreed that this is a strong tropical storm at this time and is getting closer to those islands and should maintain most of its strength by this point by the time it gets there. There's the National Hurricane Center forecast cone, and they expect that the storm will weaken to the point where it will just dissolve completely by the time we get to Saturday. No tropical depression icon after that, it's just a storm and then it's dead. But in the meantime, we're looking into the evening hours today. As you can see there, the storm passing very close to some of those islands and indeed through them. GFS model for the next 7 days, as you can see, is quite similar to what the National Hurricane Center is saying there, with that movement continuing westward, still traceable until it reaches land near the border between Nicaragua and Honduras. And now let's take a look at a closer view of what happens when the loop reloads there. There it is, near hurricane strength there, passing through the gap between St Lucia and Martinique, and then continuing westwards, becoming a remnant low by the time we get to probably the 26th at the latest. So that would be that, and perhaps some of its energy might be used for an Eastern Pacific storm after that. Here's another view of the rainfall expectations over the next few days, and you can see a few red zones when the storm first moves through those islands. That's why we're very concerned about high rain rates. And behind that you can see that other system as well, 4L, which has now been designated as a tropical depression. That will probably become our next tropical storm, and it actually gathers momentum as it moves off towards the north. But looking more closely at Bret here, moving westwards, a lot of its rainfall vanishes there by the time it reaches the Central Caribbean, and those other islands shouldn't be expecting too much, although maybe a little bit residual there in Honduras. So that's the general picture over the next 7 days. Rainfall totals then. The National Hurricane Center a warning of up to 10 inches. The GFS model is suggesting right now 7 inches maximum on land, That would be on the southern tip of Martinique. Of course, it's quite clear that the northern side of the storm will be much worse than the southern side, not just its wind field, which is miles larger than on the northern side than the southern side, but in terms of its rain potential as well. There's 7 inches, that is around 175 millimeters, and we're also looking at significant amounts elsewhere as well. And this rain estimate has uptrended since earlier forecasts, so it is prudent to suggest that it could get a little bit higher than that as well. Sea surface temperatures aren't going to be a complaint for this storm. They are decent, around 27 to 28 degrees Celsius at least. These are low temperatures, really, minimums that you can expect, and that will rise a little bit as it gets towards the Western Caribbean, but it'll be wind shear that completely dethrows this storm as it continues over there towards the Western Caribbean. Chances of any regeneration is considered to be very low as it gets pushed into Central America rather than a recurve, and indeed, like I said, probably adds a little bit of energy to an Eastern Pacific system that could form next week. So here's some satellite imagery over the course of this morning, and you can see both of these systems here. Bret looking a little bit squashed there from east to west, it has to be said. The centre of the storm is sort of around towards the southwest of that mass there, and to be honest, on radar, which we don't have right now, but you can find it on the Force 13 website, it looks decent in terms of its inner core as it just about starts to enter the radar range. Looking at the true colour and infrared there blend, which I always like this view, you can see how this storm's been developing. Still got some good cloud tops, not extremely organised. We're not talking about a major eye wall or anything like that. This storm is running up against the clock, and when it does move through those islands, we do expect that weakening will begin to occur if it hasn't already by then. Is it peaking right now? Good question, possibly, but we'll have to wait for more information throughout the day. Stay tuned on our channel.